Give me a D and a G. It's the Dawg and Gus Show. It's the Dawg and Gus Show.
Welcome to the Dawg and Gus Show.
Now on Be Kind Radio.
Absolutely.
What do we got going on today,
Oh,
Doc?
man. I'm really excited about this one. You know that.
I know.
We have Monte Warden joining us today. And if you don't know who he is, you're going to learn real fast.
Hi, Monty. How are you?
Good. How are y'all doing?
Good, thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We like to dive right in. So you've been part of the Texas music scene for like decades. When you look back now, what's the first memory that still feels vivid?
Wow. Texas music or just music in general?
What do you think? Any answer would work for us.
Okay.
Whatever you feel
Well,
comfortable
I
with.
reckon, when I was 5, I remember like the first thing that like really turned me on for music was Elvis's Via Satellite from Hawaii show. It was in March of '73. So I was 5 years old. And that was like the first time music like ever grabbed a hold of me. And I couldn't believe anything like Elvis. And this was Elvis in '73. I don't know how familiar you are with that Via Satellite from Hawaii show, but that was like the last time he was ever like better than everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
It's really a special set. So anyway, I was 5 years old and I thought that was about the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And fast forward just a few years later, Elvis was playing in Austin in March of '77. This was right before my 10th birthday. And for my 10th birthday, my folks took me to go see Elvis. That was the first time I saw live music outside of church. And it was Elvis's first performance in Austin in 21 years. So it was really cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
May I share a brief story about my mom seeing Elvis?
Are you asking me or are you asking
I'm
Monte?
asking. I just want to tell. It's kind of a cool story.
Any Elvis story.
Yeah, so he played Ottawa. We're in Ottawa, Canada, and my mom skipped school because she's 84 years old. So she skipped school. I think it would have been in the 50s, I would suspect, or maybe late 50s.
Yeah,
And,
I think he played Canada. He did a couple dates in '56 and a couple dates in '57. Those are his only outside of U.S. dates he ever played.
That's
yeah.
right.
So my mom skipped school, and my mom's friend's father had a pink Cadillac, and they stole the car and they drove to go see Elvis in Ottawa. And obviously got in a lot of trouble for that. But what a story to have in your repertoire of life, right?
And it's it's worth it. Whatever trouble they got in for that, here we're telling this story, 70 years later. So it's perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that story about my mom. It's hilarious.
And
My
it's
mom's
Elvis.
boring it. Yeah,
That's right.
seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the that was like the heyday of, Elvis obviously had a good heyday, but you know what I mean?
Right.
You did all
Yeah,
right.
that was where he was just artistically still dangerous. And those records were just so brilliant and just a great amalgamation of just rhythm and blues and country and Elvis. His artistry was really at a high point from like 54 to he went in the army. And then I think his artistry picked back up in the late 60s. But that period in the 50s, he was unmatched.
Yeah. Agreed. So awesome.
So we know from digging that you're a history buff and obviously a history buff of Elvis.
Well, it'd be how could you, be a songwriter in the music business and not, of course you were going to know that. It'd be like if you were a painter and not getting into Rembrandt or Michelangelo or something, you got to know, what the greats were all about. But Presley was, what's so fascinating, I think, about him is it's so nice now that his artistry is being appreciated. But, there was a period there. Certainly he died at a low ebb of his creativity and artistry. So it took a while for people to maybe forget. His decline was rapid and brief, but it was also the last thing he ever did. So people kind of remembered his last few years maybe too much. Maybe there was too much a spotlight on them because they were his last years. And then for some reason or another, over the 10, 15 years ago, it became very much in vogue to dismiss his artistry or say Elvis, stole his art or talent from someone else. And you can't steal art. You can't steal talent. Elvis was an extraordinarily unique act and he didn't appropriate his music from anyone. He didn't appropriate his talent from anyone. Your talent is your own and it's God-given. And Elvis was a unique artist in the fact that he was one of the few people in the white South that was in the same socioeconomic place of other black people. And he lived around black people being in public housing. And so Elvis was very much part of his culture was black rhythm and blues and, of course, black gospel. And inside his house was white gospel and white country music. And then when he'd go to school, it would be pop music like Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. And you put all those things together and you get Elvis Presley. And only Elvis could have done that. There were certainly artists that were around black rhythm and blues records or black gospel records, but whatever that was about Presley and his extraordinary talent, I mean, just as a vocalist, to this day, he's unmatched. And he was able to sing, very few artists can sing everything great. And Elvis sang everything great. Linda Ronstadt's another one of those acts that can sing everything great. And not even an Ella Fitzgerald or a Frank Sinatra or a George Strait or a George Jones can sing everything great. But Presley was able to do that. Like I said, Ronstadt was able to do that. A few other artists. He was just unmatched. And I'm so glad to see with the concert film that Baz Luhrmann just put out and the biography that he put out a few years ago, people are starting to take a fresh look at what an artistic genius Presley was.
Agreed.
Was there a moment when you realized music wasn't just something you loved, but it's something that you can actually chase after?
Yeah, well, music has always been a friend to me. Music has always turned me on a deep level. Like I viewed my records as my friends when I was a little kid. And for some reason or another, nobody in my family picks or writes or is a musician or anything. But always, as a kid, I would always look to see who wrote the songs on records. I've always been turned on by the songwriters. I have no idea why, but as soon as I was able to, like, when I got a guitar and I learned 2 chords, I wrote a 2-chord song. I was always drawn to creating songs out of thin air, and for some reason or another, and, I'll never know why, but God saw fit to allow me to have always been able to write songs that people want to hear. From the first time I ever tried to write a song, there was something about it that people dug, and so I just, I've always been a songwriter. Really, professionally, since I was 14, that's the only job I've ever had. Only job I ever wanted.
It's cool. It's good that you
Yeah.
found it so young. That would be amazing to find your callings that early. So it's like when you started so young, like with Whoa, the trigger, what do you remember most about those like early years trying to find your sound?
How easy it was to meet chicks once I started playing the guitar. No, serious. I, skinny and goofy and just kind of a record nerd, and girls scared the hell out of me. I couldn't talk to them. They were so intimidating. But I noticed guys on TV that picked the guitar tended to do pretty well. I'd be watching American Bandstand, and there were guys as goofy as me on American Bandstand, and the girls were going nuts for them. So I thought, well, I ought to try that. I couldn't be doing any worse. And I remember there was this news program used to be called 2020, and they were doing a thing on American punk rock, and they showed a clip from 1958 of Buddy Holly and the Crickets on the Ed Sullivan Show singing "Oh Boy." And Buddy was in just like a cool enough looking suit, but he had his big glasses, and I wore glasses back then. And the chicks were just going nuts. They were screaming for him, and I just went, man, if they'll scream for that guy, I at least have a chance, And so I just gravitated towards that. But obviously, there was a talent there and a predilection to know how to put music together. And right away, at my first band, Whoa Triggers, little rockabilly band, it had the same lineup as Elvis, Scotty, and Bill, just 2 guitars and an upright bass, no drummer. Johnny Cash and the Tennessee Two had the same lineup. And we didn't have the talent of Elvis and Johnny Cash, but we had the lineup. And so it was very basic, simple music, very rockabilly oriented. And it was just a great way to learn how to formulate songs in front of an audience. And and being a 3-piece rockabilly band, none of your songs are longer than 2 minutes, and so a 45-minute set will literally be over 20 songs. So I learned a lot about performing as a kid, doing that. And the band, I'll say this, that luckily the internet didn't exist, and there were very, very few recordings of the band. We weren't very good, but we had a whole lot of heart, and we were real cute. And I'm glad that no recordings exist of the band, because people have written about the band far more kindly than the band actually was. I was in that band, and we were not as good as people say we were.
Well, it's funny you say that because you won an award with that band.
Yes, we did. We won Best New Band at the Austin Music Awards. And, I will say this. the Austin Music Awards over the past 40 years have become something extraordinarily prestigious, and the best new band now is a something in great competition. In 1983, there weren't all that many new bands in Austin. It's not like we faced a bunch of stiff competition.
Yeah, but then a few years later with the Wagoneers, you won it again.
Yeah, we were the first. Thank you. We were the first band
Yeah.
that won it twice. Now I'll say the Wagoneers. Woe Trigger kind of taught me how to write songs a little bit, and then the Wagoneers, I was quite a bit better as a songwriter. And in the Wagoneers being a traditional country band, you have to look at the Wags contemporaneous to 1987 and 86, 87, and the fact that there were no young people making just straight country music. There'd be maybe a rockabilly band, but nobody just doing just straight up country music. And so immediately, because Dwight Yoakam had already had some success and Randy Travis had a bit of success, so the record labels were looking towards younger country acts. But Dwight was in his 30s. Randy Travis was, I think, 30 years old. So a young country band, I was 19, we were an anomaly. But I'll say this of the band: the Wagoneers were a great band. We brought it. We were able to stand up to anybody on the world stage as a band in 86 and 87. And so we were blessed, the very first band to get a record deal out of the very first South by Southwest in 87. And we signed with A&M Records. We were going to sign with a Nashville label. We've been courted by a bunch of them, but it was at that time in Nashville just had this long-standing tradition of going and getting somebody, and they'll go, "Guys, we love everything about you. Let's change it." And so we didn't want to do that, and I certainly didn't want to do that as the songwriter of the band and the leader of the band. And then A&M Records came along just right there at the 11th hour, and having been founded and at that time still owned by Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, Mr. Alpert being a recording artist in his own right, of course, they were just going to leave us the hell alone. And I asked Mr. Moss, I said, "What type of Wagoneers record do you want to hear?" And he just laughed and he said, "I want to hear a record you're proud of." And man, I was in love right then. That was it for me. And that's when I knew we were going to sign with A&M Records. And sure enough, for that first album, when Mr. Moss and Mr. Alpert were still in charge, they left us alone, and it's called Stout and High, and it still stands up pretty good.
Yeah, it must have been super to hear that from somebody that is a record producer, to say, "Do what you think is right."
Yeah, it was incredible. And not only that, Gus, but, that's how I thought every record label in the world was going to be, because that was my only experience with a label. It wasn't until I got a little bit older and realized just how wonderfully unique, and not just unique, but special, Mr. Moss and Mr. Alpert's approach to artists were. Now, they weren't A&M Records on accident, because every artist that ever recorded for them, whether it's the Wagoneers or Sting or Janet Jackson or whomever, we all have a universal love of the way they approached their artists.
Yeah, that's cool. It leaves me the Wagoneers were kind of part of that early Americana / alt country movement.
Right. Yeah,
before people even really had a name for it. Did you feel like it was revolutionary at the time?
No, we were. Thank you. And it's so funny. Years later, we're considered the fathers of Americana and alt country pioneers. But at the time, really, it was just like we go into a club and these guys would go, "Well, y'all are kind of too rock for country and too country for rock and roll. Why don't y'all do something different?" We just always dug what we did. But it was. We came out of the dance halls in Texas, and really what we did was not at all different for what was going on in the dance halls. And that was just, you got to play, you play a 3.5 hour set, you don't take any breaks, and you got to keep them dancing. So that meant a lot of up tempos, a lot of shuffles, and about one waltz an hour. But it wasn't until we started touring around the rest of the world where we saw just how different a band we were. And it was really, really neat. Like, once we were finished making records, and when we broke up for the first time around 91, we were completely unaware of our impact, or that we even had any impact. But then bands like Sunvolt came along, and Whiskey Town, or Wilco, and particularly the Mavericks, and they began talking about the Wagoneers in their interviews and how we were instrumental. Like Raul Malo said that the reason why the Mavericks decided to be a country band and not just a rock and roll band there in Miami was the Wagoneers album Stout and High and Rodney Crowell's Diamonds and Dirt album. When we heard stuff like that, it was like, oh man, maybe we did something pretty good. But we had, when you're just in a van or a bus doing 200 dates a year, you don't know any of that's going on. You're just happy to get to the next date. And really, we stayed so busy, we had no idea we were, anything special at the time. It kind of took a minute before we realized, oh wow, I'll put it this way. I hadn't ever quite put it quite like this, but it took a minute to realize wherever we went, whether it was Ottawa or Wichita or any place in between, but and there was no way of creating this. You either are or you're not. But wherever we went, we were the coolest thing to do in that city that night. And so we had the hipsters that would come out to see us, and then we would have just the straight up country fans. It was unusual at our shows. We'd have these, like 16, 17-year-old, alternative looking kids. And then we would just have straight up middle-aged country fans that had seen our videos on CMT. But everybody got along and everybody just, dug the show.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a few quotes I found. I'm probably sure you've heard most of them, but
I probably
said
most of them.
Yeah. There's a Billboard quote that I really liked. It's, if the Clash had been a country band, they would have been the Wagoneers.
That's pretty cool.
And I thought you'd like that one. That's a pretty cool one. So,
well, you get press like that, and it's wild. You can't when it's happening, you can't turn it on, and when and you can't turn it off either. There was a period there. I've had a couple, 3 different spots in my career with the Wagoneers, and later on with my solo stuff, and then much later on with my jazz group, the Dangerous Few, where the critics kind of look to top themselves, or they're all just trying to, search for superlatives like they're my grandmother or something. So I've been very, very blessed with the critical acclaim over my career. But the Wagoneers it was unique in the fact, like I said, there was nothing else like it going on in country music, even almost. But like I said, we were the first ones. We stepped into the breach, and we didn't have the commercial success. We certainly had the artistic success, but the commercial success that others later on did. But I'm very proud of the fact that we maybe softened the ground for artists that came later.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'd be interested to know what's the difference was between the Austin scene compared to the Nashville scene at the time.
Well, Nashville at the time had virtually no live scene. There was no live music scene in Nashville until really like the past 10 or 15 years. It was just an industry town, and the industry was the music business. But like, you would never go to Nashville and try to make it as a band before. You would go there and try to get a deal as a songwriter, or maybe try to get a deal as a recording artist, as a singer. But you were not going to create some live buzz in Nashville. Whereas Austin, to this day, is completely devoid of any music industry. There's very little industry in Austin. There's Sony Records has one offshoot called Big Loud Texas that has a pretty small footprint here in town. There's a couple studios that do some good, but there's very little music industry in Austin, and I think that's in one way that's good, because people are just here to make music and not necessarily to make something that will sell. And also, what's unique to Austin from virtually any other town, I think, is the University of Texas is here, and the University of Texas has such a huge enrollment. I think we're the largest university in North America. We have an enrollment of almost 60,000 students. So the reason why that's important is every year you have about 25,000 18-year-olds that have never been away from home before. And so you always have people that are just excited to be out and independent and looking for something cool and maybe a little bit dangerous. And that constant infusion of youth and enthusiasm, I think, is what helped keep the Austin music scene so alive for so many years.
I remember tuning into Austin City Limits a lot to watch a lot of the live shows there. It was such a great program to go and find new music and watch newer artists coming out of that area.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That was such a great thing just growing up here. Like, the very first time I ever heard George Strait was on Austin City Limits, even though he was playing down at the Broken Spoke every Wednesday during the summers. I was too young to get into the clubs. And the Wagoneers, we recorded our segment for Austin City Limits before we made our first album. I think, or certainly at the time, I know at the time, we were the very first artist, if not the only artist still, to have recorded an Austin City Limits a segment that had never recorded a record before. We cut. What happened was, by the grace of God, we got signed to A&M Records, and then right quick, our entire year got booked between making our record and playing gigs. So our only shot at doing Austin City Limits was to do it actually before we went in the studio. And so we cut our segment there 2 months before we went and made Stoughton High. And our Austin City Limits segment just blew open doors for us. We were like, our booking agents learned very quickly to book us in a market between 6 and 8 weeks after our Austin City Limits had been shown there, because it would immediately we were able to sell out whatever club we were in, or we would have to add shows based on whether or not our Austin City Limits segment had been shown. And a few years later, several years after that, I reckon 95, 94, maybe 95, I made my first solo record, and it was doing so well with critics and stuff that Austin City Limits invited me to come do my solo shot there. And I was on a teeny tiny little label called Watermelon Records at that time. And Watermelon had, they had never had any of their artists on Austin City Limits or anything like that. And immediately, because of Austin City Limits, that became the biggest selling album that label had ever seen. And that solo shot of being on Austin City Limits changed the trajectory of my life and career. I mean, after the Wagoneers, I was in pretty much an artistic valley. I couldn't get anybody to, return my calls or pay attention to me or anything. And somehow or another, I got this little label to say yes, and they let me make this little record. And the critics took off on it real well. And then Austin City Limits invited us on, and that changed my life. I mean, within 9 months of that Austin City Limits thing, I was signed to Warner Brothers as a songwriter, and I was there for years and years, and it changed my life. Yeah, Austin City Limits is invaluable to the Texas artists, and I'm glad to see that they're back to having so many Texas artists back on the show. For years and years, because they were so popular, but they certainly got away from it being a show about regional talent, and they just got, they put the biggest acts in the world on there, and more power to them. But over the past 2 or 3 years, they've gotten back to the regionalism that I think that made the show so special.
Yeah, agreed. And you've written songs recorded by artists like George Strait, Patti Loveless, Travis Tritt, and like many others. Does writing for yourself feel different than writing for someone else?
Wow, what a great question. I don't ever really write for someone else. I'm just trying to write a great song. With the exception of the Travis Tritt cut. When he cut I Wish I Was Wrong, my co-writer and I, a brilliant writer named Tommy Connors, he and I wrote specifically for Tritt's voice. Tritt's voice is brilliant and incredible, and nothing like my voice. But I love Travis's voice so much, and I always had dreamed about having hear his voice on a song of mine, but it wasn't anything like I wrote. So we actually, normally as a songwriter, you go hunting with a shotgun, not a rifle, and you just try to write best song you can. But with Tritt, we actually went hunting with a rifle. We were real specific, and we landed it. So that was great. But over the past decade or so, because being a songwriter, for me, I just try to write just best song I can. But in regards to my voice, the things that I do well, I do about as better than anybody. However, I don't do a lot of things well. So it's a very narrow thing to get right with me. Almost like a Ricky Nelson thing, where when Ricky Nelson sang a Ricky Nelson song, he sounded better than Presley or Sam Cooke. But when he got out of that, he didn't. And for my voice, when I'm hitting on all cylinders, it's a really good deal. But as a writer, I don't naturally write for my voice. Whereas since I've been writing with my wife, Brandy, who comes from an A&R background, she was at Decca Records. She's third generation music business. Her grandparents wrote hits, her daddy wrote hits, her uncles, her whole family. So she comes from a very hit record centric mindset. And Brandy is brilliant at writing specifically for my voice. So since she and I have been writing together particularly stuff for the Dangerous Few or the By the Grace of God, the hit we have now, Doghouse Flowers. It's specific to my voice that I would never have done, I could not have done on my own. So when I go to write, I'm just out to write a great song. Like when I wrote Desperately, I wasn't writing it for George Strait. I wasn't writing it for me. I was just trying to write a good song that day. And by the grace of God, George Strait fell in love with the song too. And same thing with Patty Loveless. I wasn't trying to, with Patty, I was actually trying to write a song for my friend Kelly Willis. Patty heard it before Kelly did and asked if she could have it. Kelly was gracious enough to, Kelly was so sweet. She said, wow, you need a Patty Loveless cut a lot worse. You need a Kelly Willis cut. So she let Patty have it. So in regards to writing specifically for my voice, that is more the work of Brandy's talent than mine.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question I'd like to ask. As a singer-songwriter, which is a bigger thrill for you, to have obviously have somebody record one of your songs, or being at a concert, playing for 10,000 people and having them sing?
A couple times in my career, I have had heroes of mine sing my songs, and there is no other feeling like it. Like when I heard George's cut of Desperately for the first time, it was so moving, and it was impossible. The only sound I heard was the sound of my own tears. You know, it was wild. When I heard George Jones sing a song of mine, it sounded exactly like you thought it would. When you hear your audience sing a song of yours back, it's cool. It's fleeting, you know, because it's just as long as the show is. Whereas when an incredible recording artist cuts a song of yours, you can go listen to it anytime. But, you know, one of my favorite cuts I've ever gotten, most people have never heard, is that she's now since passed, but there's the singer named Tony Price here in Austin, and she cut a song of mine called Just to Hear Your Voice, and the song's been cut 40 times now. It's never been a hit, hadn't been a hit yet. I think if something's been cut 40 times, it's probably a hit song. It just hadn't been a hit record, but Tony Price cut it, and they put it in a Kevin Spacey movie, and it was really cool to see that in the theaters. But I was as proud as of that Tony Price cut as any other big star cut my song, because she killed it, man. She took that song of mine and took it to a place I didn't even know was possible. And that's happened a couple other times as a songwriter. But the first time that happened was when Tony cut it. If you get a chance, go check out Tony Price's recording of Just to Hear Your Voice. It's really, really amazing. You know, I'll also say sometimes you get a cut from an artist and it's terrible, but you don't talk about those as much.
Yeah,
Well, we won't ask.
Yeah, we won't. Who are some of the songwriters you still study or admire today?
Oh my Lord. You know, the older I get, man, the more baffled I am by Buddy Holly and the way he was able to craft a song and his absolute brilliance. I mean, like you look at That'll Be the Day, Peggy Sue, Maybe Baby, Learning the Game, Words of Love. They all sound like Buddy Holly songs, and none of them sound anything alike. And you go, okay, how did the guy that wrote That'll Be the Day literally 6 weeks later write Every Day? I mean, and no song before or since has ever sounded like Every Day. Is that a chorus? Is that a verse? Is the middle part a bridge? Or is that, what is it? I don't know. It's perfect. And don't dissect it. It's just brilliant. But like when Holly went to that circle of fourths in that middle section, you know, every day it's getting, every day seems a little longer. Every day loves you a little stronger. Come what may, do you ever long for true love from me? And every time it just jumps to whatever the four chord is of that section. That's like Mozart stuff, man. And he was, you know, by all accounts, you know, he was not an educated musician. He could neither read nor write music, but he certainly was a genius musician. And by the cats that worked with him, the guys in the Crickets, you know, Holly was very confident. He knew he was great. And he was not at all surprised that the world quickly thought he was great. But that level of talent, I still study. I still study Sam Cooke, and that's another guy. How do you get from, you know, Wonderful World to Change Gonna Come to You Send Me? And it's all just such brilliant melodies. Roy Orbison, I study so much. I mean, if ever a cat could write for a voice, Boudleaux and Felice Bryant and what they were able to write for the Everly Brothers, those extraordinarily soaring melodies, we still, you know, constantly study. And just in regards to lyrics, like how did that guy do that? Johnny Mercer is a pretty much, you can study Mercer over decades and never have any idea how that cat did it. And it's wild. It's like he whether it was Moon River or Charade or whatever he was doing, Mercer just could find that exact spot and accentuate the positive, glowworm, and just find it in a way that no one else could find it. And so I spent a lot of time studying writers, and what's so great what's so blessed is, I have never lost one modicum, one iota of the fan that I am about records and great songs. And so I'll go listen to Johnny Mercer songs or Sammy Kahn songs or Irving Berlin stuff and just go, man, what a gift from God these people are. And at the same time, put on an Eddie Cochran record. And I think Eddie Cochran was just as great at what he did as Sammy Kahn was. With Sammy Kahn, it was post-depression love songs. And what Eddie Cochran did was he was inventing punk rock, but his punk rockers, everybody lived in the suburbs and had a little bit of money. So he was so unique in how he did that. It's like Presley and Holly and Jerry Lee, they came from abject poverty. Ricky Nelson was a rich kid, but Eddie he had a little bit of money. He still worked a weekend job, but he had a car. He let you know the car was a piece of crap, but at least it got him where he was going. And what was so cool about Eddie Cochran's writing is there were millions of kids around the world that were in that same socioeconomic place in the mid and late 50s where there was such prosperity that just about everybody had a little bit in their pocket. And he got to write about that. And, not only do I study Eddie's writing, but, Cochran's recording, man, they still sound weird. I mean, it's like we have never caught up to what he and Jerry Capehart did over at Gold Star in L.A. Just, those are weird records, man, but they're perfect.
Crazy about America.
What's cool about it, like being two huge music fans and having an artist like yourself who's so decorated, but you speak of it still passionately, so like about other people, that music is just such therapy for all of us. It's like, even if you don't write music, but you listen to it and you dissect it, it's such an interesting thing to hear from somebody that is like yourself, like it's great.
Well, it's so, it's crazy that, it'll just turn you on and you'll be there. There'll be this record that you've heard 1,000 times, and then you'll hear something new and you go, well, that's always been there. Why am I just now noticing that today? Or we just saw the documentary on Burt Burns and all these records, that he wrote. I didn't realize, that he wrote Twist and Shout. I thought the Isley Brothers wrote it. And I didn't realize that he wrote Take a Little Piece of My Heart, or that he wrote Here Comes the Night. And we were just listening to all these songs that he wrote and all these records, and they're just so brilliant. And you just go, and a couple times as a writer or a couple times as a recording artist, you're able to just have that magical dust from the angels sprinkled on one of your records. And it's as baffling as listening to someone else's record. You go, okay, why is that record special? I don't know. I'm grateful that it is. Or, what was it about That's All Right, Mama that changed the world? Why did Elvis Presley change the world in July of '54 by just that little bit of whatever that was? Just that perfect amount of abandon and confidence and youthful optimism. And here we are. We would not be having this conversation if Elvis hadn't done that at Sun Records in July of '54.
That's right. Yeah.
What? And they did it. They did it at 11 at night because the air conditioner was too loud, and so they couldn't record during the day. And Memphis was going through a crazy heat wave. So whatever that was, so it's music. Just it sends me, man. It kills me like it did when I was 8 years old.
It's awesome. I love that.
It's I've got this grin on my face that goes around the back of my head just listening to you talk about music. It just, it makes us feel like what we're doing is important,
It is important because we love music. I mean, yeah. Thank you.
Well, and also if you turn somebody on to something, if you let somebody know that, like a kid today, and they're watching some 3-piece band, guitar, bass, and drums, And they think that that began 35 years ago with Green Day. And you go, no, actually, that was 67 years ago with Buddy Holly and the Crickets. And it's all just the same because it's just, you know, it's young guys with guitars can and have changed the world. And you just look forward to the next time they do it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way. There's a quotable line right there.
Well, we got it on tape.
Yeah.
There's a lot of quotable stuff here. This has been great.
The miracle is that I haven't dropped a single F-bomb yet. So
You're okay to do that, by the way.
if need be, if need be,
If you feel the need.
we're not entirely a family show, you know.
Now, Monty, with the Dangerous Few, what inspired the shift from the rockabilly style to the jazz motif? Is that the right word
Well,
to use?
Sure.
Thank you. Back in 87, I was 19 and I saw When Harry Met Sally. And, you know, they had all those Great American Songbook songs in that movie. And Harry Connick Jr. did a brilliant job of singing all those old standards. And as a songwriter, and I was 19, I went, somebody is going to write brand new Great American Songbook songs. And it's going to be bigger than Coca-Cola. That is, we don't have any brand new songs in that genre. Now, I did not have the chops for that. I didn't understand enough about music or vocalizing to even approach that. I was just like, somebody's going to do that. And then nobody ever did. And just those Great American Songbooks, like it's wild, man. It's the only genre that's locked into like the same 40 songs. No other, like, it was astonishing to me. Like, what if country music had stopped when Hank Williams died? Or what if rock and roll stopped when Buddy Holly got killed? But for some reason or another, the last entry in the Great American Songbook was Burt Bacharach and Hal David. And what I learned by kind of reading about it was cats like Mercer and Bacharach, and Sammy Kahn a little bit, they actually said, boy, they don't write them like they used to. Only we can. And they kind of closed off the market just for themselves, which is a pretty brilliant thing. But it got people stopped writing that way, with the exception of Bobby Darin. Bobby Darin continued to write like that. But anyway, back in 2015, I broke my leg, and I wasn't going to be on stage for a little bit. And I was laid up on the couch, and Brandy literally put a battery-operated, crappy Casio keyboard in my lap, and she said, now you're going to write those jazz songs you've been talking about. And I didn't know the first thing about how to make a major seventh chord or flat 7/9 or anything like that. So I just kind of started monkeying with the piano a little bit, and I realized very quickly there were, you know, like in rockabilly and country, the way either the 4 chord or the 2 minor is a certain release. I realized very quickly in traditional pop, the flat 7/9 chord plays that same role. And I learned that the major seventh can be so easily overdone, but when you properly use a major seventh chord, it can change the entire mood of a lifetime, of a room, you know? So, and I just started writing like that. And then Brandy and I started writing like that. And then you got to kind of go back to just John Lee Hooker, and there ain't for 12 notes. It's not going to be all that different. And I learned what to do with those chords and how those chords, it's really, you can, you know, get you an easy chord songbook, but to properly set the mood for these melodies, you must play the texture of the full chord. And so much of that is on the piano. You can match them pretty good with the guitar, but you really need the piano there for all of the depth of the notes to help you write those types of melodies and those types of lyrics. So from that injury, I thought we were going to need an orchestra or, you know, a big band or something. And Brandy and I were out at this old movie theater built in the 1800s in Austin. I think might have been seeing Bride of Frankenstein or something. Anyway, just an old 1930s movie. And Brandy said, what if you just had a little combo? What if you did just like a Nat King Cole combo type of deal? And so going through that psychic shift there, I just realized I need a trumpet and an upright bass and a piano and a drummer. And I think what really helps the Dangerous Few be even more unique than it would be just with the new songs in the Great American Songbook style is I play guitar, and my style of rhythm playing is very aggressive, coming from the rockabilly world. You know, my guitar playing has more to do with what the drums are doing than what the piano's doing. And right away, it just didn't sound like anybody else. I mean, I've been very blessed over my career to have a career, but that the critics have always dug it, but rockabilly is derivative of what came before, and traditional country music is derivative of it's honky tonk era. But what the Dangerous Few were doing, nobody had ever done before. So I had never got to experience something as liberating as doing something wholly original. And we cut our first album, and it did so well, and Brandy and I really dug it. But what was really neat is into the second album, the songs even took bigger risks and bigger chances, and then the second album was even better. And how often can you say that the second album's better than the first? Certainly not in my career.
Yeah, I don't think
was
it's
cool.
often. That's for sure.
Yeah, right.
So I was going to ask, was it risky reinventing yourself stylistically like that?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It would have been risky if it had sucked,
Yeah.
but I had the confidence that it was going to work. And but like Brandy said, "You sure you want to do this?" That's a pretty big matzo ball out there, to quote Seinfeld. So we were just going to see. People at first thought, was it like Western swing, or you doing like a Rat Pack thing, like a cartoonish deal? And I just went, no, this doesn't sound like anything else, but you're gonna dig it. And sure enough, people dug it. What has been so fun, Gus, over the past several years is people that know me first from the Dangerous Few, and then I'll get these emails or messages. They go, "Oh, we just checked out your country stuff. That's good too," which is so funny for me.
Yeah, of course.
Going back on that, I have a question about your 2 new singles with the Wagoneers. For a Wagoneers fan, is there an album coming?
I hope so. I'm a Wagoneers fan too. We have enough for an EP, and we've got another single in the chute here. But Doghouse Flowers continues to do so well. We hadn't put it out yet. We were not counting on it. We're not used to having a hit record, so with the Doghouse is doing so well. The next thing we're going to go with, it's on Spotify now. It's called Yesterday Stopped By. It's a 6/8 thing, kind of a stacked, cool 60s thing on it. And we have enough for an EP, but with the success of Doghouse, I would rather wait a little bit and do a full album. I mean, why do an EP when you can do an album? We certainly have the material for it. I should say, Dog, that we have enough in the can for an EP. We have enough material that we've not yet cut to do a whole album. And I'd rather do a whole album. I mean, the band's cooking right now, and we just need to go in and cut it. But uh, maybe first part of 27 there'll be an album.
I can wait.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the last album was in '89. So what's 7 more months?
Yeah,
touche.
seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
No
It's
problem.
tremendous stuff, though. We loved it.
Thank you. Thank
Would
you.
you say you feel more relaxed on stage now compared to like your younger years?
No, I've always stepped on stage like it's the luckiest day in the audience's life. I have no idea where that confidence comes from, but I have always gone, yeah, I'm exactly where I need to be, which has not always been the case. That's how I have felt. I love entertaining people. The Lord has blessed me with this ability to make people feel better than they did when they walked in. And I think haven't been influenced by people like Dean Martin and Elvis and George Strait and entertainers like that. I've never once entered the world into my music or my show, so I never talk about how people ought to think or read or vote or any bullshit like that. And I just want to make you feel better. And so having stayed true to that, I think has enabled me to have fans from all over. And there's enough of the world out there already. If I can just make people feel a little bit better, then I've done my job, man.
Yeah, that's a great way. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
for
we sure do. Do you think Texas still develops singers and songwriters differently than Nashville?
Oh yeah, I do. I would say, what I've experienced in the 40 years that I first started going up to Nashville when I was 18 years old. Nashville loves Texas artists and the unique thing that Texas does. If there's any ill feeling, I think it is a Texas artist towards Nashville, but I have seen that, and I sound arrogant. I have the gold records behind me. I think a lot of that is born out of guys that haven't been good enough to make it in Nashville. So it's easier for them to say Nashville doesn't get me than to say wasn't good enough to make it there, But I think what Texas does that no other place does on the face of the earth is, one, it's very open to creativity. And just go do your own thing as long as it's good. And if it's not good, maybe just try to get better. And Texas is very, very open to allowing you to get better. But also, the cultural uniqueness of the dance halls is that people bring their entire families to the dance hall. And so you will literally see a mom and a dad and their 3 kids, and they'll all be, and they sell alcohol at the dance hall and dinner and all this, and everybody's dancing and having a good time. And then come about 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30, the families leave, and then the younger people come, maybe looking to start a family. And so the uniqueness of that is that you've got young and old at all times enjoying the music. And also as a performer, you learn very quickly how to entertain a large swath of the population, literally from the little kids, from 8 to 80. How do I keep them dancing? How do I keep them happy? And that is unique to Texas. And just as a performer, it'll make a man out of you. I mean, if you're playing at 3.5 hours without a break, it is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Or
I would
faint of
suspect
bladder either, I would say.
Actually, I think we should use that from now on. It's not for the faint of bladder. We'll do a quick little bit of rapid fire. So we love doing this at the end. So best songwriter from Texas of all time.
Mac Davis.
Quick answer.
One album you wish you had written.
Well, does that mean that other artist doesn't have to get? I don't want to take that away from those artists.
Sure you
Okay,
can.
the Chirping Crickets.
There you go.
There you go. Favorite old school country voice.
Hank Williams.
A venue that always feels special to you.
The Broken Spoke.
One song from your catalog people should revisit.
Oh, what a great question. Silhouette off the Second
Nice.
Dangerous Fewer.
That's a great tune.
Thank
A
you.
dream collaboration, alive or not.
Wow. The Everly Brothers.
Nice. Coffee shop songwriter or late night songwriter.
Michael Fracasso.
There we go. Who's on your musical radar right now? Somebody that you're listening to, somebody that's like pulling you in right now.
I would say Jamie Lynn Wilson. She's great.
Nice. And what's one thing fans would be surprised to learn about you?
That I'm about 6'4", 220. No, I'm kidding.
Wait.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's great.
I have an extraordinarily vast and fabulous potty mouth. I'm extraordinarily foul mouth.
We don't believe that.
Yeah.
Anything.
I heard bullshit once.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it.
No, let me tell you. It's a fabulous mosaic.
I love that.
There we go. What are you most excited about creatively right now? Wow, that's
Creatively.
yeah, that's a new word. Yeah,
It's
I made
easy
it up.
for you to say.
It wasn't.
I am most excited about this wonderful out of nowhere resurgence that the Wagoneers are enjoying. Really, it's been an amazing gift from God. Cannot believe it, and couldn't have planned it. We were in the studio in January recording this wonderful work for hire thing that this guy, there's this big fan, and he wanted us to cut 2 songs. And for the first time like ever in my life, we were done early. When do you ever have extra time in the studio? So we just laid down Doghouse, and yesterday stopped by because at somebody else's session. It sounds that way. It sounds spontaneous and magical. It's just the whole thing has just been this amazing gift from God. We just did the Opry Grand Ole Opry for the first time since 1988. Right before they announced us, I looked over to my right, and there was our guitar player Brent Wilson, who was there with me in '88, and standing in the exact same spot. I mean, the exact same spot. And you just go, man, God is so good.
Yeah. And he is.
Yeah.
80s or 90s is a decade of music we ask everybody.
80s.
There you go.
It's my guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Work.
really the 50s, but
Yes.
We go
Okay.
50s, 60s, 70s are off limits, and then we just ask about the 2 other ones. Where can listeners follow you and what you're doing and catch up on upcoming shows?
just go to the Spotify pages. It has all the info there, or YouTube, Monte Warden, the Wagoneers, Facebook, my name, Monte Warden. I am easy to find.
It's true.
Yes. And do you have a final message for people discovering your music for the first time through the Dawg and Gus Show?
It's the greatest music you've ever experienced.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
I love this guy. That was a great answer. Listen, Monte, we really appreciate your time, and we know it's precious. So we had such a great time interviewing you, and appreciate you coming.
Thank y'all so much, and I hope to see y'all up in Ottawa, or y'all come down to Austin, or whatever.
Well, if you come here, we're there.
Absolutely.
we're right there. In fact, we
I've
expect
picked Ottawa
backstage
before.
passes.
But
Have you?
yeah, I've picked it a couple times before. I know we were on tour with Katie Lang, and I know we were on a solo tour. But boy, it's just beautiful. Good nights, gorgeous country.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank
In the
you.
summer, especially, we'd rather
Yeah,
that, I
that's
think.
where we were. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
Thank you
anyway,
very much.
thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Dawg and Gus, Dawg and Gus, Dawg and Gus.